The news continues in southern Africa, where farmers in some parts of South Africa have expressed worries over the heavy snowfall in their regions over the weekend. Free States, Eastern Cape, and KwaZulu Natal regions were the most affected. These are also agricultural endowed provinces, as farmers are now worried about the impact on farming. They say subsectors of agriculture like cattle, I beg your pardon, sheep and goats cannot deal with this harsh weather. To discuss more on this, we're joined by senior agricultural economist from the National Agricultural Marketing Council, Thabile Nkunjana. He joins us from Pretoria, South Africa. Thabile, thank you so much for joining us on News Central Now.
Thanks for having me, Tula, and good morning to the viewers at home.
Thank you. So over the weekend, we saw heavy snowfall in South Africa, which is unusual, or rather unusual for this time. How does this snowfall directly affect crops that are currently in the ground, especially with South Africa as one of the countries that depends so much on its agricultural sector?
Yeah, you are mentioning something very correct, that this was a very unusual thing for the country, because normally, as much as South Africa does get snow at times of the year, but we are already talking about spring. As a result, a lot of farmers are busy preparing for planting the summer grains in all states for this season. So therefore, when the snow came in, it came at a period where a lot of people were not anticipating it. As much as there are, measures to sort of kind of follow what is happening in terms of climate and all that. But this time around, it came at a period where it was not anticipated, at least to the level that it came in. As far as crops, agricultural sector is concerned per se, with farming, as I was saying, especially crops, the country was only beginning to prepare for the plantation of the 2024-2025 summer and oil production. Therefore, for now, there's not much that, nothing has been, impacted or affected as far as crops is concerned. But the issue, as you mentioned, is mainly on livestock now. KwaZulu Natal, for instance, and then Eastern Cape, there are two provinces that are very key in terms of the livestock across the country, and this includes, informal farmers or smallholder farmers that do not necessarily have, means and measures to protect their livestock. So the issue is there, particularly given that, especially those that are in the commercial areas, there's going to be a need of a lot of, adding to feed, because the ground was covered. And therefore, to make sure that the animals continue to survive, there's going to be a need for a provision of, just temporarily feed for now until the weather clears up a little bit in the next few days.
I think some of the pictures we're showing are some pictures people would never expect to see in their lifetime. Giraffes in a snow-covered forest, as it may be, elephants as well. We also unfortunately heard of the death of a woman in the traffic that is still being unsnarled as it is. But in terms of this heavy snowfall, how does it fit into larger climate trends that might impact agriculture in the region over the coming years? And how does it fit into some of the trends that you've noticed already?
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, as I said earlier on, that this is an unfortunate, or at least a period where nobody was anticipating that would say snow. And this is something that the African continent, as far as climate-related issues have been reported, there's a research or work that is being done by the ARC within the African Union. They are doing a wonderful job in terms of tracking what has been happening as far as climate-related problems within the continent. At least it is reported for last year only that about at least over 20, I think around 29 countries within the continent, they have experienced, some severe issues related to, to climate. So therefore, this means then that we are seeing, experiencing, issues related from the climate change that is happening, that a lot of us have not been, that have been not very familiar with. As a result, there is a need to make sure that there is a bit of, follow up in terms of what we do as the continent and the countries are within the continent, to make sure that we are ready for this, because the reality is that we are experiencing, quite sporadic occurrences. For instance, here in South Africa, not so long ago, there was another issue where we saw quite a frost that does not normally, happen to the level that you experienced in one of the provinces. That again is something that was linked to the current climate issues that we are facing as a world, and of course, including the African continent as it is.
So, are there any possible adaptive strategies or even practices that you could recommend for farmers in order for them to cope with the effects of climate change and the unpredictability of what is happening before us?
I mean, this can be looked into two ways. For one, the measures that can be put by the states to make sure that they react to situations when they come. But of course, that is going to require a very comprehensive data that will allow countries, or at least the organizations that are dealing with weather-related matters, to make sure that they provide information that is quite accurate when they are reporting on these issues. And then as for farmers, the issue there is going to be them to be able to adapt to the current trends in terms of what to produce and how to produce it. And this includes things like having to produce food using seeds that are somehow sort of scientifically proven to be resilient, for instance, to frost, to drought, and so forth. So those are some of the things that I feel like they're going to be important going on forward. Because remember, Africa is one of the regions that is being negatively impacted to a larger degree when you compare it to other regions. And therefore, given that you also have quite a large number of smallholder farmers who don't necessarily have, the technique, other, financial powers to be able to have measures around in place, it is a continent that I think a lot needs to be done in terms of informing farmers about what seed to produce, to use, and that is gonna help them to cushion the shocks that come in relation to climate related problems.
All right. Thank you so much, Thabile, for joining me. We'll continue to provide updates on the situation in South Africa as it unfolds.